Hello everybody, it is good to see all of you, and I am very happy to welcome you to our first KuK-Tuesdays of this semester. We are entering our 6th season, and if you've been here before, you know that usually Benedikte says hello, but Benedikte is in New York for the semester and will only join us for our last KuK-Tuesday this semester, I think. So I get to say hello, which does make sense this semester as we've tweaked our way of organizing this event series a little bit. I had the great pleasure to work with a group of students all through last semester to organize this season, and as my research is centering on queer worlds, I have entered that process with the project seminar with the premise to center queer topics and queer voices this semester. So that's why we are saying for a couple of months, a few months, goodbye to our usual big theme that we relate our evenings to dislocation, but I'm sure we're gonna bring it back in one of the next semesters. And I have a little cheat sheet because I wanted to name 2-3 handful of people that were a big part of making this happen. And that is, first of all, the group of students I worked with, and most of you are here tonight, so maybe make yourself seen for a second so the people around you know who you are. The group was Alessandra, Paula, Clara, Celine, Yasmin, Zini, Lina, Enel, Marlon, Teresa, Anna, and Nikki. And tonight's smaller group that was in charge of organizing this evening, that found the theme, that invited the guests, are Celine, Enel, and Paula, who's next to me, and will say a few words right after me. But I do also want to say thank you to all the people that actively make every of our KuK-Tuesday happen. That is our student assistants, and Paula is here on a double mission. She's one of those as well. So Paula, Lea, Anna, for tonight, also from our seminar group, Yasmin, Clara, and Marlon, and Omram, who's recording our session, and Dominic, who is in charge of our visuals for the evening. And now, the only thing that's left is saying that I'm very happy that all of you four have took our invitation, took our students' invitation, and I'm very happy and excited to hear what you bring to us in the next 1.5 hours. And it's off to Paula.
Hello everyone, I'm Paula, one of the 3 students who chose the topic for tonight, Unraveling Kinship. With that, kinship being a topic of necessity, a strategy of survival, a hope, utopia, an aspiration, but also a point of conflict and a sore spot for many queer people. And it's my great pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Popo Fan, who is a filmmaker, activist, and writer. His documentary films on queer families have had a significant impact, especially in his home country in China. And after moving to Berlin in 2017, he has focused on writing and directing scripted sex-positive short films. He was an organizer of the Beijing Queer Film Festival for over a decade and served on the jury of the Berlinale's Teddy Award in 2019. Popo is currently developing his debut fiction feature while working as a guest curator for Cinema Transtopia. Welcome, Popo Fan.
Thank you, Martin and Paula, for the introduction, the invitation. I'm very glad to have this great lineup tonight. Coming to TU Technische Universität, and it's something that I never dream of, because when I came here, I just almost went to the center of mathematics because I was confused on the map, and there is a cold fact that the reason why I became filmmaker was because in China, if you don't want to study mathematics, one of the only way is to study art. So, and that's how I entered film academy. And then, so in a space where people are good at technique, number, and talking about queer issue and also art and kinship and social matter is I feel is quite valuable. And also, at the same time, I noticed that, so if you probably also notice, if you have full lineup of Asian diaspora on the stage, which is a coincidence according to the organizer, but I think that's also said something about, as diaspora, what it means to us of kinship, of home country, of home, of family. From even my short CV, you can see that I had I dealt with family issues, but I stopped it after I moved to Germany. I did a lot of family unfriendly films. So if you can get more information from my website. And this evening we have a lineup of 4 panelists, and especially 2 of them both have been involved with one workshop called Mutating Kinship Lab, and then another one has very rich experience on community organizing, and so I'm sure we will have a lot to share. And one last thing I realized, because recently I've been to a few panels, and I have an observation that the moderator talks a lot. We were like, okay, now artists don't have a job anymore. They all become moderators, they have big ego. So if at any point I talk too much, please just tell me to shut up. And then, so it's my pleasure that we already have the order, as you can see, that to welcome our first panelist, Hany Tea, who is an artist, activist, and community organizer, to do her presentation at the beginning. And Hany, do you want to? I give you the microphone to you now.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Hany. I'm trying to keep the mic close to myself. So yeah, I'm Hany. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, but also for the intro. I think I come to the question of, let's say, queer kinship, not as a theorist. So I'm not a student, and I'm also not like a academic, just like a little disclaimer, but more like from the practitioner side, someone working through sound and archive and collective making. And yeah, where kinship is not just like an identity, but more like a practice of doing kinship. And when I think about queer kinship, I think less in terms of like fixed identities and more in terms of practices, like, for example, through my practice, may it be through like sound performances, archival workshops, but also collective making. Wow, what's happening? Queer kinship doesn't appear as like a primary theme in it, but as more like a sensibility or a way of staying with the difficult. And one of the main experiences in shaping what I understand as kinship, but also doing kinship, was participating in the Mutating Kinship Lab. So yeah, that's us, the Mutating Kinship Lab. Promona was also part of it. And yeah, what is the Mutating Kinship Lab? It's an artist think tank initiative that was initiated by the Asian Performing Artists Lab, APOL, and Soy Division in 2022, which brought together different collectives of artists and thinkers from the Asian diaspora in Germany to reflect on and envision how the idea of kinship could create a space of belonging, but also a system of care and like a network of support. And these are the collectives that were involved, so APOL, AFSAR, Davra Collective, DAM, Mohalla, MSG and Friends, Soy Division and Untitled. And they all have personal but also cultural ties to either Indonesia, Thailand, but also more broadly, geographically speaking, Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Asia, Central Asia as well. And they're all based in Germany, most of them, I believe, even in Berlin, right? So, yeah, that was in 2022. We had 2 editions. The people participating came from different sort of backgrounds, maybe activism, community organizing, but also artistic and research practice. And we had 2 editions. The first edition focused on intergenerational artistic practice within the Asian diaspora, and the second one focused on the creation of brave spaces for discomfort, as well as anti-fragility, which is basically sort of how to deal with, like adversity. And I think anti-fragility is also some sort of like a quite academic concept that we try to, like include in the way how we deal with, let's say, white audience, but also like uncomfortable situation even among communities, and how can we, grow out of discomfort as well and interconnect better. And I think just to give you an idea of mutating kinship, because even like the 2 terms are quite like, in German we call it sperrig, a bit tricky. I have the publication of the Mutating Kinship Lab. It's from our first edition, and it's a quite creative publication, because on one hand you can read it as more like a creative sort of mini fairy tale, I think, and on the other side it's quite academic and like documenting what happened. And yeah, I will just read like a short excerpt of like a short discussion on mutating kinship and mutating kinship. They sat in a circle like an orbit. It was still drizzling outside, but inside their words flowed like torrents. Mutating what? It sounds contagious or something dangerous. Well, mutating is about survivalism, the adaptability to transform into other individuals. Imagine viruses adapting to the vaccine. It's about how we can flourish, not just survive. I like the idea of a virus, though. It's unpredictable. Mutation is about taking the other position. Viruses are self-organized. They mutate in different ways. It's collective survival. Kinship is about how we are linked to each other. I think kinship is a strategy of communication. For me, kinship is to be forced into a unit, like family. But what is family? Are we talking about kinship in a traditional context? It is somehow patriarchal. As I migrated here, I always thought about how I could fit in. Is that a mutation? Migration integration sounds problematic to me. It seems that in every migration experience, there's always a need to have an integration process at the end. Survivalism, does it mean that we are allowed to do anything in order to survive? What are the values driving mutating kinship? What behaviors should be practiced to create a communal space of belonging? They all noticed the key word, belonging. Everybody stepped back. Somehow, those questions opened the labyrinth of their memories, And they started the question, if we could work without fear, is it a sense of belonging? Belonging. How do we optimize our resources wherever we find ourselves and grow our roots there? How do you feel a sense of belonging in a community if people can easily come and go? Where do we belong? Asia? Can we have some critical thoughts about the term? What about Pan-Asianism? Where do we belong? How do we define Asian? How do we call ourselves Asians when we grow up here in Germany? Where do we belong? Here? Home country? Both? Neither? In-betweenness? What we do is more than food and celebration. It's about collective memories, anxieties, and empathy. Are they not already intertwined with kinship and a sense of belonging? So yeah, and I think with that, I'll just close my mini input and just hand back to you.
But I have an urgent question to you already. Just also let you know that I talk with panelists that love urgent questions. So if you raise your hand anytime you want, that's also very welcome. And I really love the text you read, and that is remind us of identity beyond how do we look like, where do we come from. Just want to have some brief context about how was this text was drafted, who wrote it, and how or what it was the content to have this statement.
Okay, very urgent. This text, this whole publication was written by two members of Mutating Kinship Lab. One part was Emma Lo, and the other part was Umi. And Umi is the one, just to point her out, down on the left corner, the second person from the right. That's Umi, and she wrote this text. And it was some sort of a documentation of a conversation we had. And she actually used like fictive names actually among us, so you would not know, oh, that was Promona, that was me, but she gave each of us like a sort of a nickname, and you could maybe guess who it could be, but in the end it doesn't matter, right? Like, because we all kind of come together with our sort of individual mindset maybe, but then we kind of merge, and yeah, so I think this is also like a way to do kinship, right? To get into this exchange and be okay with differences as well, like this sort of like same but different sort of mindset also. Did I answer your question? Yes. Okay, cool.
Beautiful, thank you. And this is great transition to our next panelist, Dr. Promona Sengupta, and then researcher and artist of the project Spaceship Beben. And so, as I mentioned, that Promona was also part of the lab, and I want we are really curious what you share about your relationship with the topic of kinship.
Thank you so much, Popo. Thank you, Hany, for your input, and thank you for having me here. I'm gonna try and catch the light and also hold the mic and do all these really important things. My name is Promona Sengupta, Dr. Promona Sengupta. Very important. I spent a lot of my time chasing that doctorate, and I have it now. Anyway. I'm an artist, and I have been living in Berlin for now almost a decade. I come from the city of Calcutta in East India, and I was also a part of Mutating Kinship Lab, but I'm not going to speak on MKL. I'm going to speak on another project, or rather spaceship that I'm a part of, and it's called Spaceship Beben. And as in my artistic practice, I work with science fiction and world building and kind of speculative strategies, ways of understanding not only the world, but also connecting to the oppressions, that oppressive systems that prevail upon us in the world as racialized femme people, with other kinds of intersectional identities of marginalization. And that kind of hardcore practice of just being alive on a regular basis as the person that I am is somehow transformed into this all-encompassing collective that we created in the year 2020, which became Spaceship Beben. The reason why it comes up in a conversation around kinship is because it started off, or rather it is a part of a longer process that I have been involved in as an activist, and being an activist, or rather at some point of time, it was not called activism when I was younger, it was called revolutionary politics. When I was growing up in Calcutta, I was growing up under communist rule, and there was a general sense of community spaces in which young people would go to be to read Marx together, to watch, leftist films. This was just the way I grew up. Very strange, but cool. That's what made me who I am. And so there was a lot of conversation around, or rather there was not so much conversation. People used to call each other comrades, right? It was a very common way of referring to each other. As kids, we would call each other comrades, and I remained a leftist, and I remain so till date. And I kind of went from different kinds of leftist organizing spaces to feminist organizing spaces to queer organizing spaces as I went from Calcutta to Delhi to here, etc. And this intimate call of calling another person comrade remained with me. And while we were doing this in a very commonsensical way as children, I was kind of interested to understand or also to feel what it means. What is it, a very specific kind of intimacy that is outside the intimacy of friendship, or something more than family, something more than partner, something different than sibling, right? It's a different word, so it must be. So I was always interested in trying to substantiate this verbal call with a physical, visceral practice, and trying to see if there is something like that. And there is actually not so much writing about the intimacies of comradeship, or what exactly it means to be a comrade to somebody or have comrades around you. It is seen as just a commonsensical practice that is a part of activist revolutionary circles. And so I kind of, in my artistic practice, which is also part of my political practice, or vice versa, I started kind of critically looking at it, experimenting with what it feels in the body to be called a comrade, what it means to go from calling somebody a friend to calling them a comrade. So really kind of being, or opening myself up to a deeper understanding of what kind of intimacy it is that we are talking about. And it seems that it took me to a place of like an intimacy of the future, something a little bit futuristic, something a little bit science fiction-y, because what I understood was that the intimacy that is involved in comradeship is the intimacy of a shared dream of a different world. That is what that is the sticky, erotic thing between comrades. It is not just the wear and tear of showing up at demonstrations together. It is not just, it is also this, but it is not just the, the hard work of wanting to keep each other alive through untenable circumstances, genocide, severe health crisis, things like this. At the heart of, or at the base of these very difficult things that one does for people that they fight alongside with, there is this deep, life-affirming desire to see the other person, the comrade, alive for long enough that the both of you go to the other timeline, that the both of you are able to see the world change that you so much fight for. So it was a very moving and a very sexy way of connecting for me. And it was quite far away from anything that was even remotely within the unit of the heterosexual family, within even the unit of, regular friendship, forget anything that is transactional. And I was kind of also looking at, just the etymology of the word comrade. It comes from the same root as camera. It's coming from the word chamber, the same root. So it's like technically somebody you just share space with. That's it. It's like the expectations are so low because the stakes are very high. The stakes of keeping that low expectations relationship alive is that you will be able to care for each other and love each other and know each other and hate each other and fight with each other till the time where you see the manifestation of the new world that both of you have dreamed up together. This was like the way that I was thinking about it, and I was not doing this alone. I was, of course, thinking about it with my comrades, and we were discussing this, writing a lot of letters to each other, and trying to kind of understand what, in terms of like the actual bodily praxis, what is it? How do you do comradeship? And that's when the Spaceship Beben arrived. It's, in plain speak, it is a collective of Flinta Q people who live all over the world. And everybody, all of us are interested in, like, we are science fiction nerds. And so we have like a basic interest in like discussing or nerding out on imaginations of other different kinds of worlds with different kinds of frontiers, both good, bad, like the morality of it is not that important. The fact that it is entirely different from ours is important. And all of us are interested in trying to playfully experiment with time travel and space travel, and in an embodied way, not in only sort of an academic sort of scientific discursive practice, but also in terms of what it means to be queer folk who are living through a completely different understanding of time, a completely different experience of the passage of time. As femme folk, completely different passage of time through our bodies, and feeling constantly either too late or too early for everything, and our struggles with clock time, with linear time as racialized folks, things like this. And so we make art together on the basis of that. That's just like in very plain speak. Sometimes we make art together, sometimes we share it. The point is not to create something, the point is to nerd out together. And the point is to constantly keep trying, being in the process, because trying is everything, trying is it. That's punkt. Just kind of continuously committing to trying together. That's about it. That's the praxis of comradeship. And yeah, that's how the Beben flies. And yeah, I'm the captain of the Beben. So there are, right at this point of time, 15 cosmonauts on the Beben. And every year we land on a lake, because you can't land on land, you have to land in water. And we do some recruitments, and new people join, and new energies come in. And we make a very long interview process. HR is very important. And yeah, it's about encountering each other in this world, in this burning, fucked up world, encountering each other as something else than whatever we hand-me-down ideas, identities that we are stuck with, right? So dislodging that a little bit and just trying. Yeah, I'll stop there, yeah.
My urgent question. So, for one, you can grab the other microphone because we can be more interactive. And so, the first one, if I understand correctly, Spaceship Beben. Spaceship Beben is a project. Is that cyber-based community? So my question is about, firstly, is about what kind of space is taking over, and how do you practice your activities, in which kind of circumstance?
It's a good question, because we started out in 2020, which was pandemic times. So the gatherings were online, very different in terms of the practices that we experimented with. And the moment the lockdown got over, we started doing like in-person meetings. So what we do is that, if nothing else, at least once a year we do land together. So that is the landing is the annual event that everybody commits to, and people come down from wherever they are coming down from. And it's just a one whole day of like underwater anti-gravity exercises and flying exercises and eating together, being naked together, feeling, also kind of telling each other what's going on with our lives. It's very much also about making sure that all of us are keeping each other alive, to really keep it very banal. So the landing is a way for the Beben to also start its year. So the Beben follows a different annual calendar, because it is a outer space vehicle. Obviously, it doesn't care about linear time. Yeah.
Great. And actually, another question of mine, because I'm really fascinated by the matter of comradeship, and it's so it has such a sophisticated relationship with kinship itself, right? And then also I can also share that there is a fun fact that in China, we have been using comrade, which is in Chinese 同志, calling queer for a very long time, and it was invented by Taiwanese sociology, and then a sociology professor, and then also spread out in and then China, and also Hong Kong Queer Film Festival has been using this term. and become more and more popular in mainland China. And sometime when I was on the bus in Beijing, and the older generation might call you, "Hey, 小同志, little comrade, could you help me?" I was like, "Oh, how do you know that I'm a comrade?" So but right now, Chinese government is trying to stop people using this term because they want to take back comradeship. And so my question is about because you're the project of Spaceship Beben, the community is global and they have different language used, and in this transnational circumstance, how does terminology play a role into do everybody agree on the comradeship as a terminology, naming your relationship? And of course, because comrade in different country could have a significantly different meaning. So I'm really curious.
Thanks. This is actually a really cool question. So the word, specifically the linguistic issue of using comrade, that's a provocation that I personally love very much. And for example, there's one of the members of our of the Spaceship is from Hong Kong, and when we were interviewing her, this came up. This idea, so comrade, the word comrade is coming from an earlier form of communist, and it's also about Chinese communism, specifically mainlandism versus Hong Kong's own self-rule. There's a lot of stuff that came out. I think this precise quality of this word to be so divisive, so provocative, and also having a usage for such a long time without being able to be caught and labeled into one box for such a long time is the reason why this word is not just a word, it's a praxis. And that is what draws me to it. And in terms of every single person on the Spaceship agreeing to something, we don't agree on almost nothing. There are so many people, and all of us have different reasons why we come on the ship. And that is absolutely okay. I think the only commonality really is the commitment to see each other alive tomorrow. And I think that's fair. Yeah.
Thank you, Promona. And our next panelist, Tzoa, is from Casa, which is a community center in Kreuzberg. And talking about space and community, I think Tzoa must have a lot of things to say. So looking forward.
Hi, everyone. Yes, first of all, I still in my mind with all your input. That was also interesting. I have now a totally new perspective on the word comrade. I don't know where to look at, you or you. I'm part of Casa, which is like a trans interqueer community and health center in Kreuzberg, and it's founded by and for trans BIPOC folks. And we have many aims, but like in general, it's also part of it is like to decolonize the understanding of health and bodies, but also health as like a very broad concept. Like what does health mean? What does well-being mean? What does community mean? And to get away from the very individualistic understanding of health that we have, like especially in Western medicine, where the body is seen as like a machine that's supposed to function and to produce in capitalism, and health being like the equivalent of being productive, being able to work, being able to contribute to capitalism. To go go away from this to a more like communal understanding of health, of well-being. And and also to see like what actually impacts the health and well-being of people, especially like trans BIPOC people, like from like daily microaggressions, socio-economical factors, isolation, like all of like how society also impacts all of this. And that because often like in Western medicine, like the individual is blamed for not being well, like you ate this, you didn't do this, I don't know. But also to see how society impacts health and well-being of people. And yeah, that's why we're also a community center. And also, what does community mean? And also what is the difference between community and kinship? I was also wondering, like when I was thinking about this talk. And I don't have an answer. I have ideas, and I would be interested to discuss it with you also. But I think that in order to like create new forms and new forms of kinship, I think there is a need of community first, or at least it helps. I think for me, like community is also used in a very broad overuse. Like everything can be community nowadays. Like you wear the same shoes, you are a community. I don't know. So, but like for me that's like a broader term. But then kinship as like your chosen family, and what does that mean, and how do you relate to those people? I mean, it's like who do you relate with, who do you build relationships with, but also in what way and with what aim and why and what for. And for me, it's very interesting questions for sure. And to reimagine also what it can mean. Because I don't know how far I should get into. I have like 2 pages of things that came into my mind when I thought about kinship. I don't know what you are going to ask, so you can also just stop me at some point or ask questions in between. I think a lot of people also in Berlin, also in queer communities and trans communities, do feel very isolated and lonely. And I feel like this also gives ground to people to go back and reproduce the patterns that we learned, like very patriarchal, nuclear family, heteronormative forms of relating to each other, even if queer. And it does make sense, because I guess if you're lost, you go back to what you know. And that's what most people grew up with. So a lot of people also reproduce, like nuclear family structures, or only relate to partners, or only like 2 people, nuclear family, and then maybe kids. But is that what we want? Is that what I want? Or how can we build other connections that are long-term, meaningful, where people rely on each other? And I really liked what you say, to commit, to try, and to fail, and to try again. But then, of course, I'm getting lost now. But I think there's so many challenges to it, like, because people are isolated. Then, of course, there's capitalism. Often, or most people, if they share economical resources, it's between partners. I have very few examples in my immediate surrounding where people also share their resources, like share money with friends, even if you're super close. Like if someone inherited a house, they will not share the house with the immediate friends. Like some do, most don't. And it's also like why, like even like yeah, there's so many questions that come up, like why is that? Like is that something that makes sense, or is it something that, yeah. And I think like because also we associate family so much with like economical stability, or not stability, but like an insurance or so. But can there be another way to share resources, to like have like stability and security? And yeah, so I mean I can go on. It's true. But no, I think I will leave it a bit. But but also, yes, this like what I also see is like this striving to be part of heteronormative norms. Like also if it's with queer marriage. For me, I'm very skeptical of queer marriage. I mean, if people want to do it, go for it. But it's like, why do we need like a state approval of a relationship? Like, I mean, in a way, I'm happy when it's there because, yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's always nice if people can get married and have the approval. I mean, it comes also with privileges, with a lot of things. But like, is that what we want? Why do we want this? Like, what brings us there? Is it like, why are we reproducing or striving to this norm? Like, yeah, like, and then I think also like if the strive to achieve the norm, like the societal norm, also it's also those who are like within, let's say, the queer crowd. It's still the most privileged to have access to the norm. So those will always, like again, leave behind those who don't have access to this norm. So it's also like, even if we say queer marriage, not all queer people can get married if you don't have papers, if like there's so many reasons. It costs a lot of money, like, so it's like who can access this? And this is also a big question for me, like, for who is it? And yeah, I think access to community and to kinship for me is also a big topic. Like, I mean, creating kinship, creating communities, creating kinships takes a lot of energy. It also can give a lot of energy, but it also takes a lot of energy. And then comes up the question, like, who has the energy? Like, especially those who are most marginalized in society have least energy to put into community, into relationships, into rethinking, recreating concepts. So I think it's also, yeah, then it also happens that those who are most in need of kinship have least access to it. Like, it can be by mental health, by, I mean, many reasons. Just like daily life can already take all energy of like racialized people, of trans people. Just like surviving is already like taking more energy than a lot of people have. So for me, it's also, yeah, important to support people to access community than to hopefully access kinship. And I mean, of course, you cannot create community or kinship for people, but I think that's also one of the aims, or many aims of Casa that I see, is to offer the space that people can come together and have maybe an easier access to community and to kinship. Maybe I stop here.
Thanks, Tzoa, give us and supplies us another perspective on intersectionality, especially on class issue and gender sexuality, and also important keyword at anti-capitalism. But so my question on this term is that to have such a community center in the heart of Kreuzberg, and with the anti-capitalism perspective, how do you survive? We have also in Hany's text mentioned about survivalism, and how do you keep the space?
So we exist since, the physical space exists since 5 years now. And 2-3 first years, we do pay rent and all. Unfortunately not squatting. If you have a squat, tell me. So the first years we've run on donations only, like crowdfunding, like from the community to the community. We had different collectives organizing events and parties for us. But it was fundraising. No one was paid. And at some point we were like, okay, I'm one of the founding person of this space, and it felt at some point that it was like more than a full-time job. It was like the first thing at breakfast, the last thing before you go to sleep. And at some point I was like, okay, like how sustainable is it? So we started to look for funding. We got funding, from the Berlin state. And which comes with new challenges. For us it was always important that we will not change, like we will not get funding if it changes what we do, because a lot of funding pushes you to go into certain directions, what you can do, what you cannot do, or you do things because there's funding for it, so you create projects around funding. So this we really didn't want to do, and so that's a new challenge. The good thing is we can pay people, which also creates a whole new dynamic and hierarchy, who then is paid in a space, who's not, who's doing. It's a mess. But so there's like good things about it and not so good things. And of course, like with the politics in Berlin, it will not last long anyways, but for the time being,
And I saw that you're currently still doing crowdfunding, so maybe you can say calling for their support. How can we support?
For sure.
Just search
money.
Casa and then find there is donation link on their
on their website
front
and
page.
Instagram. And I have the dream to have like a house. If you inherit a house, come to me, come to us. Because why a house? One of the big things we do that I didn't mention is just like emergency crisis support, and a lot of the crises and emergencies are about housing. Like people writing us, calling us, saying like, or they are already on the street, or they say, okay, in 2 days I'm on the street, in a week I'm on the street. So we, within our communities, we look for like accommodation for people, for like, emergency accommodation, then try to look for longer term, which in Berlin, as we all know, is not so easy, especially if you don't have so much money. So it would be amazing to have a house to be able to host people in such situations. So and then
great. Great. You guys, the audience can please prepare for your question, because I'm going to have my last round of question. And I would actually continue to talk about, continue this topic about surviving, right? Because it's a current, such a burning topic for no matter you are in a collective or you are doing individual practice. So I was maybe both Hany and Promona can also share what current project you are doing and in which term it is, under which frame it is, and how it is your strategy to make it keep on going sustainably. And in a way, I feel that we were talking about mutating. I feel that we are like a virus. We need to mutate to suit a new circumstance that less resource come from the authority, but rather where else we still don't know. So please share. Maybe Hany, you have.
Okay. Wow, there were so many. I have so much in my head from the inputs that were amazing, but going back on survival, I mean, I think hopefully we could all agree that kinship is not about only surviving. I think you mentioned that, right? Like it's really like about commitment and care. And what did you say? Like the trying to what was it? Trying to commit. Committing to try, sorry, wow. Committing to try. Oh my God. Oh my God, it's been a long day. Committing to try, no, I love this. And I think survival, I think when we also think of, communities that, like come and go, break apart and, maybe try to fix themselves. And I think also in the past I've been thinking a lot about being part of a collective or like an activist group. Is that kinship? No, it's not just kinship, no, because this sort of the mere membership of a group is not kinship. It takes the effort, there's no effort in it, right? You put something in, and at the same time, it's not transactional, right? Because otherwise, like, okay, Promona, you're taking Kinship Lab, you have to bring something. No, you don't have to, right? Because I think, so I think it's difficult to really define it, and still we sort of can in terms of like, oh, what is not considered kinship, right? Because even part of a collective, and then you have this really like a strong hierarchy, or it's extractive. It's not kinship because there's no care or like some sort of like a togetherness, a willingness for togetherness, and that is, connected by emotions as well, by some speculative futures, but also memory, I think. And yeah, survival. I'm just blabbering now, I think, when it comes to survival and current projects. I don't know, I don't want to think of like, oh, I'm doing projects because I just want to survive. It's more like, oh, I want to thrive on those projects because I want to allow myself and others to enjoy themselves in the process. I think, yeah, it's more about like the process making and not expecting an outcome, or like, oh, there has to be something that I have to show to people in order to, have like a list of like, oh, now we're like this and that. And maybe kinship is more like a process making and not like it's a group that is fixed, right? So, current projects. I'm like, I try to also like link it somehow with the projects I'm doing at the moment, which are more like archival workshops with former contract workers from the coming to the GDR from Cuba, Mozambique, and Vietnam with their children. So it's an intergenerational dialogue, interaction, and it's all through music and sound. We did one edition last year with a focus on food. And I think for me it was more like to see how can we bring people together that are not, artists by profession, not academics by profession, but really have their daily lives and daily struggles and their histories that are intertwined with what we experience here as the present, the future, etc. And kind of, also sort of create like mini kinships among each other, right? Like I don't have like a personal relationship to Cuba, but I can sort of see some sort of like a bond through my family's migration story that is, coming from Vietnam to East Germany or East Berlin back then. And so, I don't know. I think kinship to me, and it's not about surviving. It's really like how to go beyond surviving. Surviving should be the bare minimum, or I don't even want to take it as a bare minimum. It's like, it's no. So, I don't know. I'll just like stop here. I'll just pass it on. Okay.
I have lost the train of thought. But survival is sure the bare minimum, but we actually live in a pretty a highly oppressive world, and depending on what bits and pieces of privileges we have been able to garner in our lives, depending on that, we are able to survive good, bad, worse, or whatever. I personally find it extremely difficult to survive as an artist in Berlin. And the kind of wear and tear of, this kind of lottery and gamble about my future, as a migrant whose visa is connected to their finances, is connected to whether they are able to stay here, or a life-changing decision that doesn't even come from them, comes from some authority, and then they pack up and leave. These are like, there's a basic level of regular anxiety that is so unacceptably high that survival seems like success, and that is not normal. Any attempts of saying that is somehow normal is violent, and I find it somehow easier now that I'm a little bit older to be a little bit more honest about my struggles, and in the process also being able to hold that it is not my struggle alone. This is actually a struggle that is faced by a lot of migrant people with similar, or forget about those with lesser amounts of privilege than me, right? In the face of a regular life that is seeming so untenable and so unsustainable, where every single day you're waking up and you're like, okay, today I have to think a really, really interesting and important thought so that somebody can give me money. In the face of that, your ability to remain, fertile of the mind, to remain open of the heart, they are severely impeded. And I think, there's this letter that Rosa Luxemburg wrote to her comrade Clara Zetkin from a jail in Lichtenberg, and she wrote that today the prison guards punched me and kicked me in my stomach, and I almost died. I was on the prison yard. I was on my face in the mud, and I could have died, Clara. But then I looked up at the sky and I could see beauty, and I knew I was alive, right? And that is the seduction of life. That is the seduction of the possibility of a changed world. And that is actually the seduction of connection, right? And whether it is kinship in terms of chosen family, or in these normative ways of being able to put your body weight on somebody else, basically for a brief moment of rest. That is outside the purview of struggle, of survival. That is, that beauty that reminds you that I am alive for something else, not for survival. Survival puts food on the table, yes, but beauty keeps me alive. And beauty comes from curiosity and connection. Yeah.
Microphone to have so this is a very powerful moment that I feel that we can extend to a wider community-wise. I wonder also to if you have any thing to share. Who other community members come to Casa KuK, and they like the reason why you have this, as you mentioned, to have this space also of servicing their challenges, right? So what in the survival term place on them?
So yeah, we don't have one community in Casa KuK. There's many different communities in plural coming together or having their own spaces. I forgot your question. Sorry.
Let's say loneliness. You mentioned a lot of them feel they are isolated, right? Then probably this togetherness is also a way part of their survive. Do you feel so? And what kind of what do you supply at Casa KuK to help them out from the isolation?
I mean, yeah, we are like self-organized. Also, that I mentioned earlier. No, we also give the space to different communities to organize. So also, because like sometimes it's like every Sunday, for example, there's like the dolls, the trans women meet up. There's like groups for only Black people. There's like really different people, like everyone can choose within our frame, like in what connections they want to meet, and also to what makes them feel safer. So yeah, but like regularly, yeah, a lot of like what I observe is that a lot of people come because they do feel lonely. They also like some people also just say like, I don't know any I don't know any like queer people, I don't know trans people, or they know some but they are all white, so it also comes with challenges and racism. They go to white queer organizations, they get racism there. Yeah, so I think there's really the need of this space in the city also. And yeah, I think it's very individual why people come, because we also have so many different options to what to come for. And I think that's also the beauty of it, because yeah, you can come for back pain, but you can also come for whatever, depending on what people organize. But it's also not like us organizing things for people. We want people to say, okay, this is what we need, what my people need, what we want to organize in this space. So it's not us offering a service to people, and I think that's very important to me personally. We are not like social workers that are like, okay, now you need this to feel better, but we want to also encourage people to realize or to think about what do they need, what do they want to create, and we can facilitate the space, material, money sometimes. So yeah, that's more, and then it connects people in that way.
it's a progress of empowering, if I may say that, or.
I hope so.
Yeah, so especially when when people talking about Berlin, it's like, oh, it's so queer. There are queer space everywhere, and you can meet online, and the in-person space are dying out. But I just want to stress this awareness that okay, this is for different communities, and they have different way of meeting up and being and the togetherness. So I want to stress the importance of Casa.
And I think, a Berlin thing is also because there's so many queers and so many spaces, different, queer spaces. I think it's also a challenge because there's conflicts, but then also how do people deal with conflicts? And for me, kinship is a lot about conflict. It's easy to call yourself friends and kinship and family if everything is nice, but do you stick to people when it's not nice? Do you commit? Do you commit to try to go through challenges? And I think in Berlin, because there's so much, sometimes there's a tendency to become like a bit of a throwaway society attitude. No, you have a conflict, you go to another space. But for me, what creates kinship is that you commit to try to make it better, to go through things. It's of course good because in some situations you don't want to see someone again. If it's like abusive situations, relationships, discriminations, then of course you're happy to not have to meet this person all the time. But then I think so that's for sure a positive thing, but the negative thing is that some people take the easier way to just escape, and then so I also think that I don't know what you think about it. What's your experience with conflicts, and how committed people are to go through it, and what culture of conflicts we also create within our communities, because it is not easy, and of course then a lot of people, there's so many traumatized people within our communities, then of course you fall back into patterns, you recreate things that in other situations you maybe wouldn't. So there's so many layers of it, and how do we deal with it? How do we also go through hard times and not just we love everyone?